Okay, welcome to this week's edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to spend it here in the spirit of community, mentorship, and learning. I'm your host, Geraldine Hall. I'm a customer success manager at Salesforce and a military trailblazer. Each week, we invite a co-host or co-hosts to take part in the conversations that we can leverage their expertise, experience, and unique perspectives. The focus for tonight's session is blazing trails with Salesforce Military. So if you're curious on how to use Salesforce Military to help in your Salesforce journey, this is the session for you. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick and we will get our wonderful co-host introduced. So I'd like to welcome and briefly introduce our co-host for tonight's session, Stacey Whitaker. Stacey is a director of product delivery at Innovate. She is a transformative leader with an expert viewpoint in all facets of Salesforce from a technical, end user, and executive sponsor lens. In her free time, Stacey is a board member for Witness Success, empowering attendees to excel in their careers by focusing on education, leadership, diversity, and mentorship, as well as a board member for Gaggle Social, a focused professional social network and hiring platform seeking to eliminate the major barriers in tech hiring. Stacey is a champion and ally of the military community and a frequent speaker at Salesforce conferences and events. It is so great, Stacey, to have you co-hosting Office Hours with me. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And I will just go ahead and let everyone know the secret. The title, Blazing Trails with Salesforce Military, is a session that my husband, very proud military member, has done for many years, and he was sadly called away on business. And so being the supportive spouse and also a huge advocate for the Salesforce military program, I am stepping in to try and fill his shoes as best I can. So we'll talk about Salesforce military, but also my own career and transition. And then you'll be lucky to have Yancy come on, hopefully in the upcoming weeks.
So we are thrilled to have you, Stacey. I mean, if you can't already see, Stacey is a Salesforce MVP Hall of Fame member, so pretty amazing. But Stacey, we'd love to hear just a little bit about you. Would you like to take a moment to just further introduce yourself and share your Salesforce story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started with Salesforce accidentally in 2010. I was actually a recruiter in the staffing for contractors in the nuclear power industry. And when my management team kept talking about this great system they were going to get someday and how much better all of our processes were going to be someday, I got tired of hearing about someday and just went and asked, what is this great new thing? And when are we going to get it? I want to get my hands on it. And so since I seemed to have extra amounts of time, they actually gave me the admin credentials to a brand new Salesforce environment that had a managed package installed to help with staffing. And they said, we've had this forever and haven't had any time to do with it. Can you learn it, set it up, and then teach us? And so I did, and that was 2010, and I immediately just fell in love with Salesforce, particularly the reporting aspect of it, how quickly you could get a report, how you could change it and modify it, how it was real-time data. It was just so different than anything that we had used before. And I love Excel, but it was so good to get it out of manually updated Excel spreadsheets. So that was in 2010, started my career. I spent several years working as that admin, and while working at an ISV partner a few years later, I discovered Pardot, and again fell in love with the data and the analytics, and so took off and started my own independent consulting and really just delved into helping companies make the most out of connecting their marketing automation with their CRM. So Pardot, now called Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, and this was right after Salesforce had bought it. And from there, my career has just grown from independent consulting to settling down with a consulting firm and moving up into management, now directing the Salesforce practice. So I like to tell my customers that I have been an end user, I've been an admin, I've been an implementation consultant, and now I'm advisory. So I feel like I've sat in just about all the seats possible to really help be able to see their perspective.
That is awesome. I think it's pretty rare to find someone who's been in all of those different roles, and what an awesome perspective you bring to your customers and clients. So for those that are joining for the first time, I always like to briefly explain the purpose of these office hours. These sessions are informal get-togethers for gathering with military trailblazers and allies to explore non-technical Salesforce career and branding related topics to help you achieve your professional development and career related goals. The next hour is intended to be an opportunity for collaborative mentorship. Every person on this call is encouraged to step up and help answer questions from your perspective. This will help provide additional diversity of experience to the answers given. Please keep an eye on the chat window during tonight's session. The two Daves will be helping share a lot of great information, including learning, networking, and employment opportunities. If you'd like to ask a question at any point during today's session, please feel free to do so. If you don't feel as comfortable speaking up, you can also push your question in chat. And once again, Dave Albright and Dave Nava will be awesome making sure that we get to those questions. I'll do my best as well to help monitor that chat window. And then we will also be looking for raised hands. So finally, for tonight's session, it is being recorded. If you'd like to share an attribution-free comment, please let me know before speaking, and we will make sure it's edited out of the final recording. That is a whole lot of stuff to go over, but without further ado, we're going to go ahead and kick it off with some questions here for Stacey. So starting with your Salesforce kind of certification pursuit. So with 13 Salesforce certifications, Stacey, what advice do you have for individuals preparing to pursue their first certification?
Well, when anybody asks me what should I do, whether it's my first certification, my next certification, my next trail on Trailhead, I always point back to, what do you want to do? Where's your passion? And so that goes for certifications. There is it's so easy to get into this, what is your next certification? And you just become a collector of certs. And while that is good for many people, that you shouldn't feel like you have to collect certifications. So I got started with the admin. That was before there was an associate. These days, I do encourage folks to get their associates first. It's a great entry point for those that are learning. And then the admin, in my opinion, is such a width of so many things that you need to know pretty intimately, that for most folks, depending on what your role is that you want, for most folks, I really encourage that they look into the platform app builder before digging into the admin, because it can really help you just really get your feet wet and get some of those core configuration processes and best practices really nailed down before jumping into the admin, because it's a beast of a certification nowadays.
Oh my goodness, yes, it is, absolutely. I think about how I fit that much information in my brain at once, and it was just daunting, definitely a daunting task. And I love the advice, Stacey, that you gave to, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? Because I feel like that information is going to stick so much better in your brain when it's something that you're really excited about and that you want to learn about.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm going to add on to that don't feel like you have to get any certification, first of all. But if you do, don't feel like you have to get the technical ones. If your role is going to be as a business analyst that will never be in the setup menu, then look at the business analyst certification, look at the user experience or the strategy designer, look at those types of certifications, the two different associates, there's a standards associate and the AI associate, and then look outside of Salesforce certifications at PMP, at Scrum Master, at other things that are out there, and see what is going to be helpful in your individual path.
Awesome. So we'll go a little bit more into the certification piece. Are there specific certifications that are either required or highly beneficial for consultants at firms like Innovate, and how do you prioritize obtaining them?
Honestly, for me, because I grew up in Salesforce when certifications weren't as required as they tend to be more today. And so I tended to get the experience and then add the certification as evidence of the experience. And that's not always realistic today, that a lot of companies do want the certification before they'll give you the experience. So, you know, experience always trumps certification, but if that's not an option for you, what else are you going to do but study and get the certification? That being said, I really do like the consultant certifications for consultants. They really, that's like the sales cloud, the service cloud, experience cloud, the nonprofit. There's a lot that are very niche specific. And those go into not just how to do things, but why to do things and how to consult with your clients on when to do things. And so I like that it's more than just the, here's all the configurations possible, but it really gets into those best practices.
Dave.
Stacey, I haven't looked at the partner program in a while. You probably know better than we do. Is there still points associated with certain certs to get partners higher status? Because that plays a big part in it as well, right? When you start thinking about what's the next cert, because I think the consultant ones were like 3 points each, as I recall.
They are, yes. The consultant ones, the architect ones have higher points values than some of the others. But yes, you do still get points for most, not all, of the certifications.
Yeah, that's a great point, because, you know, I think when you're working in consultancy, especially if it's a smaller consultancy, there might be more of a push for you to get some of those certifications faster, especially if they are on the partner path with Salesforce, to help kind of grow that pipeline of potential clients that they have. Dave Nava.
Yeah, quick question, and then I see that Heather has one in chat as well. My question is, you know, for folks that are new, we have certifications and we have accredited professional. Can you talk a little bit about the value of those and kind of the role they play in becoming a certified professional, and maybe your approach to those as well?
You know, I'll be honest that I may not have a great answer for this. And so I'd love to open up and hear from others. My career path, I have really led on my own. And so when a topic interests me, I go study, try to get some experience, learn about it, get the certification. I've not been in a position where a company has really asked me to grow in a particular area or to choose an accredited professional over certification or vice versa. It's really just, and I've been very blessed, right? And part of it is because of the era of Salesforce in which I grew up. And so I understand that it may be different now. I can tell you that internally within Innovate, we do look for people that focus their learnings on our core areas. So we work a lot with mission-driven organizations like the federal government, like higher ed, like nonprofits. And so for folks that have either certs or AP in those specific areas, those are more valuable to us. But then, like Geraldine said, also those partner points matter for a small firm like ours too.
That's helpful, thank you.
Okay, we had a question from Heather in the chat. Heather asked, can you recommend a good place to find all the prerequisites needed for certifications?
I don't know that there's a specific list anywhere, but if you have a certification in mind, you can go and look, and in the exam guide, it'll be on there. It'll also be at the intro to the trail mix for that particular, trail mix on how to get certified for that, how to pass the exam for that particular certification. There is also a graphic that is pretty widely shared that has like the pyramid that'll show you if you're trying to move up to like the different levels of architect, which ones are required beforehand. And if you're going through the Salesforce military program, it will walk you step by step. If you say, this is my goal, it will walk you through all the steps of getting the prerequisites on your path to achieving your goal.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and then it looks, Oh, sorry. I was going to say Dave and Dave look like they both dropped a couple of comments in there. We've got a link for the administrator overview. That's usually where I go, is into Trailhead. And if you look at that certification, it'll list out on there what prerequisites, if there are any, for that.
A couple people, myself and Portia, both put the Salesforce BEM ones. They're really good at having the great job at putting the pathways down and what you need to go for each of them and what you need to look at, things like that. Salesforce BEM is an excellent resource on that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about certifications. We're going to switch and talk a little bit about Superbadges. This is always kind of one of those topics that comes up. Dave Albright's given the eyes, because it's always interesting to hear everyone's perspective when they come on here as a co-host. So how do you view the value of Superbadges in complementing traditional certifications? And do you actively pursue them personally as part of your learning journey?
Yes and no. So yes, I find Superbadges incredibly valuable. And as great as it is to get hands-on with Trailhead, Superbadges really take it to the next level, that they don't walk you through, type this, then click that. It makes you actually think about how to do things. And so it's a great way to showcase your experience, especially when you're getting started in a new area. As a hiring manager, when I am doing hiring, I appreciate when when candidates will put relevant Superbadges either on their resume or bring them up in the interview process, because it opens up to tell me, especially if it's an area they don't have a ton of experience on the job doing, but they're proving that they can still do it. Now, for the second half of your question, I have not done a Superbadge in a long time. I did some early on, but at this point, I'm not hands-on in the system near as much as I used to be. More, I just will build fun demos for, the kind of the art of what's possible. But I don't know. I might have to get back into and see what's new in the Superbadge world.
I was thinking the same thing, Stacey, as I asked you that question. I was like, how long has it been since I've done a Superbadge? I feel like one of the last ones I did was Financial Services Cloud or Flows. So yeah, it has been a bit for me as well, but I think it is great that it doesn't walk you through step by step how to do it. So it is definitely more challenging. They can take some time. Some of them I remember taking days for me to finish. But yeah, really appreciate your thoughts on the importance of Superbadges and how they can really complement certifications. So we're going to switch gears just a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about networking and networking strategies. So with your leadership, Stacey, in the Salesforce community and advocacy for the military community, we're interested in delving into various networking strategies that you've employed, both online and offline, and their impact on career development within Salesforce ecosystem. So as the Louisville, and hopefully I said that right, I know that is also a point of contention, Salesforce community group co-leader, how have you seen networking within the Salesforce community benefit individuals in their career development?
I obviously have been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for a long time, and my career path accelerated when I got involved in the community online, and even more so when I started attending in-person events. And then I hosted a podcast called Campfire Stories for 5 years, and every single guest, when they were telling their Trailblazer story, the catalyst for really catapulting them was the Trailblazer community. And then I'm seeing it myself firsthand. Nancy and I, when we moved to Louisville about 2.5 years ago, we restarted a dormant user group. And it has been amazing to see this group of folks that they show up. We meet once a month in person, sometimes more often, but at least once a month. And to see the number of people that have gotten new certifications, gotten new jobs, gotten promotions, gotten raises, gotten speaking opportunities, earned a golden hoodie, just the incredible things that have happened to them that when they walked into the user group for the first time, they didn't think was within grasp, and now it's in the rearview mirror and they're on to achieving even more. There's nothing like the Trailblazer community. It really is a difference maker.
I agree. Unfortunately, in Clovis, New Mexico, there is not a community group yet. I will say yet, right? But in my mentorship of others, a lot of the kind of questions and trepidation I get from people is they'll say, I don't have a certification yet, or I'm just starting. Like, is it okay for me to show up to these community events? And so what would your advice be to someone who is brand new, doesn't have certifications, is just learning and starting to kind of step into the Salesforce ecosystem?
Yeah, why wait? I mean, if you know that getting connected in the Trailblazer community is going to be beneficial, what reason is there to wait? Go ahead and give yourself that advantage from early on. Whether it's study advice or career advice or even help with finding job opportunities, there's no downside to getting involved in the Trailblazer community.
I love that. I love that. So how do you believe, Stacey, that attending community events and dreaming event conferences can impact an individual's career trajectory? So do you have any examples? You talked about, interacting with the Louisville community group and seeing just people's careers grow from there. Do you have any kind of stories or any guidance for individuals on how it might be able to help them in today's competitive job market?
Yeah, so I'll tell you the story of Katie Villanueva from our user group. And she came to one of our earliest meetups when we had just started a couple years ago. And she tells us now she came because she really loved Salesforce. She fell into Salesforce during the pandemic and was really excited to be able to just kind of geek out about, oh my goodness, Salesforce is such a cool thing that I'm learning about. And, you try to do that with your spouse, your friends, but if they don't know, they don't know, right? And so she just really wanted to be excited about this thing with other people, but she didn't know anybody in the community. And she says that she sat in the parking lot and cried because she was so nervous to walk in. And I totally get it, right? I have the benefit of having my husband that accompanies me on most of my adventures. And so we are a support to one another. And to walk into a room where you don't know anybody, you don't know what to expect can be really scary. But as military professionals, especially, y'all have been through scary things before. As military spouses, you've moved and walked into rooms where you didn't know anybody before. And just knowing that there's a lot to get out of it. So Katie came and just clicked, right? And she says that she's an introvert and she says that she's shy, but she fit right in and immediately found her people. And a few months later, we asked the group, and we're getting about 15, 20 people a month. So it's still, it's not uncomfortably small number, but it's not huge where you're going to get lost in the crowd. And I asked, does anybody want to speak to the group, right? And so she messages me and she's like, I'd love to speak. I'm like, okay, what do you want to speak about? And she's like, I don't know, I just really like Salesforce. Let's talk about Salesforce. I'm like, okay, well, let's brainstorm and see if we can focus. What is it that you like about Salesforce? What do you want to share with people? And so we spent a little bit of time and just she just started purging out all these things, and we helped shape a message that ended up becoming her speaking about how her role in working with Salesforce has really helped her to actually manage her bipolar disorder. And she presented that session to our user group, and it was so moving to everyone in the group. And a month later, she's presenting it at Southeast Dreamin. A couple months later, she's presenting it at Witness Success for an even larger group. And some people from Salesforce actually heard her story and picked it up. And then she's presenting it on Salesforce blogs. And then this past Dreamforce, she was on the admin stage getting a golden hoodie because she took that initial this is how it has helped me with my mental illness, and started a whole mental health and mental illness Trailblazer group, and now is helping Trailblazers and connecting with others all around the world. And all it took was going from tears in the parking lot, finding a little bit of courage to walk through the door, and she's now speaking on big stages, making a global impact for something that she's really passionate about, that mental illness and mental health care, and has leveled up in her career, earned several certifications, and went from calling herself just a solo admin to now understanding she is an awesome admin and really owning that. And actually just started a new job with 10K advisors and is happier than she's ever been in Salesforce and also outside of it. So.
What an amazing story, and what a great story to tell. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, right? So it's just an amazing story to tell as well this month. I just love the opportunities, and I've seen a comment in here. Let me see who it was. I think it was Deanna talking about just how welcoming the Trailblazer community is. And I think that's really one thing that sets the Salesforce ecosystem apart, is that there's really not that need for there to be competition or like animosity toward each other. It's really just a welcoming and open place. And sometimes just taking that first step of walking into that community group can really change your life.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, my husband and I are both Salesforce consultants, but for different firms. So technically we're competitors, but although I do like to tease him that, I became an international speaker before him, that we have our own internal competition, but nothing as far as our jobs or our work against each other. And I'll tell you, even what we've started doing is when we travel, like we went up to the Philadelphia area to see his son for his birthday, and then we went back to a town we used to live in, Wilmington, North Carolina, just a few weeks ago, and we found a local community there and attended a meeting. And so it's not just about you're local, but there's Trailblazers everywhere, and so it's always great to get to connect.
I love that. Very different than the conversation my husband and I had today. It was, you can never work remotely. Like, I have this. I don't think I could work 6 feet from you. With him being home with the move, this isn't going to work. So
we have different offices.
There you go. It would have to be like different floors, I feel like, for me. All right. So we're going to switch one more time. We're going to talk a little bit about soft skills, since you're talking about some of those things that maybe are not on the more technical side. So how do you approach building relationships with clients and colleagues in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Authenticity is really the key to it for me. I am really in love with Salesforce and what it can do. And so it comes out naturally when I talk to clients or colleagues or prospective new clients of how passionate I am about the Salesforce platform. When I talk to folks that are thinking about getting into the Trailblazer community and starting a career, they see the impact that it's had on my life, on my husband's life, our whole family. And so it's just, we're just authentic about it. I try to be really intentional that just like in real life, if somebody comes up and talks to me, I'm not going to turn around and ignore them. So I try to be the same online. If someone reaches out, makes an introduction, I try to be responsive, and until they try to sales pitch me without actually getting to know me or what my needs are. Of course, I'm not trying to be spammed, but I just try to be an authentic, real person that, there's things that aren't perfect in my life and in my career and even in the Salesforce platform, but overall, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And so I think that just shows when I speak about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we talked a little bit about like being new to the ecosystem, being scared about, I don't know all the things and I'm not technical. Maybe I have a non-technical background. So can you share an example of a time when your communication skills or soft skills were really instrumental in resolving a challenging customer situation or a project that you were working on?
Yeah, honestly, every single day. And so let me just back up and say, first of all, there's no one who knows everything about Salesforce. Not even Salesforce Ben knows everything about Salesforce, y'all. So it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to not know a lot. And y'all are all here right now, whether you're watching the recording or you're here live. And right this minute, someone else is logging into Trailhead for the very first time. So you're already ahead of them. And so really think about, it's not a matter of, I don't have as much experience as others. It's, I do have this, and know what it is that you have to offer, because everybody has something. And then now to your more pointed question is, the transferable skills are really everything. Anyone can go on Trailhead and go through the modules and learn how to click set up object manager, create field. I mean, that's not the hard part. The soft skills are the hard part, and that's what helps you to stand out. And especially for military folks to understand those transferable skills, your leadership, your organization, your punctuality, we were talking about right before the recording started. Like, those are all things that really help to stand out. And I can tell you that there's hardly a week that goes by that there isn't a scenario where good communication with a client or with a colleague has helped to have a more productive outcome than bad communication. So, and I'll give you a real example of something that just happened Friday afternoon within my company. I was working on a task that involved a few other people, and there was a misunderstanding of expectations. And one of my coworkers actually stepped in and started running with the task that I'd already begun. And so we talked about it a couple of days later on Monday, and I was like, hey, I just need to know what happened here. And so they explained their perspective and what their intent was. I explained my perspective, my intent, and we talked about how what we each did impacted the other one. And we agreed to actually refine our process moving forward to minimize us stepping on each other like that. And it would have been really easy for me to just let this other person step in and go, or even get my feelings hurt and feel kind of pushed down about it, or have pushed back too hard and been like, what are you doing? That was mine to do. And instead we talked about it, and we actually not only got the task done together, but then improved our process for moving forward.
I love that. I love just hearing about those instances where, you can know all the technical things in the world, but here's something where those soft skills that, especially in the military, being able to talk to people and talk through some pretty tough situations where you can really shine, and your leadership can really shine in those particular circumstances. So we are just about over the halfway point. So we are going to go ahead and get set up for our picture. I may be a little bit slower because, once again, I'm operating on like one tiny laptop screen here. So give me just a little bit of grace as I get this set up. But we want to make sure we get that group photo before I forget. It's important. We always want to make sure that we are branding, and we will plan to post on LinkedIn and Twitter, and we will tag everyone that is in the photo. So if you only have your first name showing in the Google Meet and would like to be tagged, please feel free to go ahead and include your full name in the chat window. It makes it much easier to be able to tag you in that photo. And anyone that would like to participate in the photo, if you would like to come off on camera at this point, please go ahead and do that. And I'll give everyone just a second to be able to put their names in if they would like to. And I will grab a screenshot. I'll make sure that I give you a countdown. All right, looks like we've got most people off or on camera now. Okay, a couple more messages coming in. All right. All right, if everyone's ready, on the count of 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right, and I know that the Dave's got backups for me because they're always really good about doing that, because I usually mess up the photo.
I always have to tell myself to shut my mouth so I don't sit there and look like moo. I always take the worst pictures. It's consistent.
I know, it's hard when you're trying to take a photo and you're talking and orchestrating everything. Okay. So we are going to move on to a different topic now. We're going to talk about cultural fit and growth within the workplace. So when you are looking at different organizations, I know that you are very happy at Innovate, right? But when you're looking at factors that you would want to consider when assessing a cultural fit of a new workplace, what are some things that are important to you?
Um, Community involvement is really important to me. And so I actually, before I made it into the Hall of Fame, I wrote it into my employment agreement that my company will send me to Dreamforce every year because it's just that important to me. So bypassed a different type of bonus and asked for that instead. But I do mention that in the interview process that I want the opportunity. I want a company that's going to support me to attend Witness Success and Dreamforce and other things like that. Because that's important to me, and I don't mind to take my own time, but it feels better to know that your company is behind you doing those types of things. I also look for diversity. I don't want to be sitting on a call like this and all the faces look like me, or your stereotypical tech person. And so I do look for diversity in colors, in genders, in age ranges. I do appreciate if there's folks of military background in leadership positions. So the company I'm at now, the woman who hired me actually isn't there anymore, but she was a veteran and was one of the reasons that I took that job. And then our CEO, our founder, is a minority woman. And so those are factors that are important to me. And then ultimately, just like so many people in the Salesforce ecosystem, I don't ever want to stop learning. I don't want to ever stop growing. I don't ever want to be stagnant. And so I look for a company that will allow me a path to continue to stretch and know that sometimes I'm going to mess up, but they will keep helping me to grow and be a better and better person.
Awesome. So, thinking about culture, right? There's, you obviously are bringing your whole self to work. So how do you align your personal values and goals with the culture and mission of your organizations that you choose to work with? How do you kind of align those two and find that right fit?
It's important to know what the company stands for, right? And go beyond what the marketing team has published on their website if you can, and really ask those questions during the interviews. If you have multiple interviews, ask it multiple times or rephrase it. Similar to how like a business analyst is going to really elicit requirements, and sometimes that means you ask the same question a couple different ways to make sure that you're really getting the true answer. One thing that I've seen some companies do, and I love this, is I've seen some companies that will actually have a time where the candidate can have access to a group of team members that aren't involved in the decision-making process, and they can ask them questions about what's it really like to work here? What's the work-life balance really like? What's the culture really like? What's the management style really like? And I love that opportunity. But ultimately, if you're in an interview and you feel like you're having an actual two-way conversation, that's a great first step. That this is a company that wants you as a person and wants you to want to be there and doesn't just see you as a number, because interviewing should not just be about how good of a fit are you for the company. It really does need to be both ways. How good a fit is that company for you and where you want to go?
Absolutely. And I think that's really hard, especially for transitioning military members, to kind of wrap their head around that you are actually interviewing the company as well to find out if it is a good fit for you. And I think that's oftentimes why transitioning military members will just take the first role that kind of gives them the opportunity, and they might find themselves not happy with that. So how would you recommend kind of aligning or finding out about what is important to you, kind of making a list or something? What advice would you have for those transitioning military members on really finding what is most important to them in their next role?
I think the buddy system is really good here. Like you mentioned, and it's not just transitioning military. My husband it was in the 90s that he served in the Marine Corps. So he's been out for a long time, and he still has this mindset of, well, I'm not going to apply for a job unless I meet 100% of the qualifications, because that's, you got to be able to do everything that it says. And if somebody tells me I need to take this job, I'm going to take the job. Like, he just, it's it's still built into him from those Marine Corps days. And I know, once a Marine, always a Marine, right? So I totally get it. But I think this is where the buddy system comes in, and you can help each other to just sit and write up a list of what do you want out of the job. And that could be, how many hours a week are you willing to work on a regular basis? How much income do you want? How many PTO days are you looking for? But also, what is the culture that you want? And what of those are negotiable and what of those are absolutes? And then let somebody know about your list, so that when you get done with an interview and you're all excited and like, hey, they sent me an offer letter, then they can help go, but do they meet everything that you really wanted? Let's talk about this. Because we can convince ourselves of just about anything if we really want to, or feel like we need to. But having somebody that helps hold you accountable can help with that.
Awesome. We have a couple of questions here. First one is from Deanna. Are there questions that are an absolute no to ask an interviewer?
I'm going to go back to the reference to authenticity. And I'll tell you all, like, look, I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for 14 years, and I've spoken a lot and published a lot and done a lot, but I don't expect that everybody knows who I am. And yet I was interviewing somebody a few months ago, and the question that they asked me is if I had any familiarity with Salesforce. And it just felt so inauthentic that if it was something that you really wanted to know, you could have done a quick search on your favorite, Google or Safari, and it's pretty obvious that I'm pretty familiar with Salesforce and have been around it for a while. And so, Deanna, I would just say, if there's things that you really want to know, ask. And if it hits them wrong, then maybe that's a good thing, and you can see how your hiring manager is going to act when they get caught off guard. But don't ask things just to ask things, but it should be really things that you want to know.
You are better than me, Stacey, because I probably would have just said no. I know nothing about Salesforce at that point.
I thought the same thing. I would have been like, nope, next question. We're done.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so Brittany has a question as well. Any advice for navigating trying to find a company that fits, but with the current not so great job market for those trying to break into the ecosystem?
That's a real question, and that's a tough question. And this is where you really need to just know what works for you. And I have heard some people give advice that would say, take whatever job you can until something better comes along, whether that's lower pay than you want or a less ideal scenario. And I've heard others say, stick it out until you find the right role. And that's a personal decision that you need to make with your family. You know what your finances are, you know what your mental health capacity is to deal with, inopportune scenarios. So, but I do want to throw out that even for folks that are earlier in their career, that contract positions can still help give you that little piece of experience without tying you into any long-term commitments. And so that might be a way to explore. As far as where to find the roles or companies that are going to fit, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the Trailblazer community and networking in general, that when you are hanging around people, you see who loves their job. You see the companies that are sponsoring the events, that are highlighting their diversity and inclusion policies. You see these companies that are offering paid time off to go volunteer. And so when you see companies doing things that you really want in your company, then look to connect with people that work at that company, and really, as much as the job boards are great, the LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, and Indeed, and all those, there's a lot of jobs out there. Almost every job I've ever found has been just through networking, really. And that's one of the reasons I really encourage people to get involved in the community, is to one, find your next job, but then also then to help others find their jobs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is always, I think it's no secret that it's a pretty tough job market right now. And I think people's priorities change pretty frequently. And so I personally encourage people take kind of an assessment of yourself right now. What are the most important things to you? Is it that you have a secure job right now, or you're in a financial situation where you need to find a job right away? Right now for this season of your life, that might be kind of your top priority, but in 6 months that might change. So you almost have to go back and revisit those things over and over again, because you go through a lot of different seasons in your life. And if you just kind of stick to, well, this is what I thought I wanted, and like, I should be happy with this. You might find yourself not as happy and fulfilled as you could be.
Yeah, and Geraldine, there's a module or two on Trailhead about the V2 Mom methodology, and that can help to set your intentions and your vision, your values, and then how you're gonna measure, prepare for obstacles, and so forth. And so that can really apply even to your job search process.
Absolutely. Dave Albright.
Yeah, I was going to just echo it. Stacey, I think you answered that really, really well. And I think, Geraldine, Dave, myself, Priscilla would probably say the same. There's a couple other people, Larry Lee, some folks who have been on here for a while would probably echo the same thing. Like, yes, there are ways to get in and there are different paths and everyone has their path, but the networking aspect of it is huge, right? Every job I've gotten in the ecosystem so far, which is only 2, right? But every job since I left the military, which was in 2018, I've gotten from networking, right? Somebody knew somebody who moved a resume forward, right? And the market is very different now. And I get this same question a lot lately through LinkedIn or through different avenues. And I think, Stacey, you really hit the nail on the head. Is you have to make the personal choice, right? Do you just want to get in? Because I always say this, there's 2 hard things coming in the ecosystem. One is passing that first cert, and that's a little emotional for all of us, despite the things we've been through in our previous lives. And 2 is breaking into the first job, right? Getting enough experience or knowing a connection for someone to hire you. Once you probably have 6 months of experience, a year of experience of consulting, config, admin, something like that, the world kind of becomes your oyster. It's still a tough market right now, but once you have a cert, right, and you have experience, and I don't even know if you need the cert, if you could prove you have experience and you could turn around a dev org and show someone that you can do some stuff, I think it kind of opens up. And so each person has to take that personal choice of, do I just grab the first job I can get to get that experience, or do I wait for a community that fits for me? And it really just depends on what you feel is right. But the community and the network, I know Nava is huge on the network. It is so important. So I just want to echo that.
Dave, Nava.
Just to piggyback, don't forget about alternative work experience too. You don't have to have a job to show that you can do the job. What I mean by alternative work experience is what a lot of folks do, right? Is build that portfolio on Community Cloud, or I'm sorry, Experience Cloud, to show that they know how to, essentially build a site, create apps, and share those on social media, on YouTube, right? Start a YouTube channel where you show folks how to config. And if you can point back to that digital portfolio in job interviews, that will make a world of difference.
Yeah, that's a great point, David. We actually have somebody in our user group that is working through the Talent Alliance program right now, and is also working with a mentor gearing up to take his admin certification exam. And he regularly, every Tuesday morning at the crack of dawn, he posts, this is what I've learned this week. And so the whole world gets to watch his journey, and he's gained quite a following just posting every week. And I know when I wake up on Tuesday mornings, I'm going to see a post from Kendall Dave, and it's going to be there, and it's great to watch. And there are others that are like, okay, well, as soon as you get that certification, which hopefully happens the end of this month, I want to talk to you about an internship or a job or a role, whatever. But it's just, he's putting in the work and then sharing what he's learning along the way.
Okay, last one, Geraldine. But Stacey, I wanted to hear your thoughts on this, because before we were talking about Superbadges and certs, and to be honest, and I don't ever say we should do that because it diminishes all of it if it's done. But you can cheat on all that, right? You can Google how to get through a Superbadge. You can Google dumps for certs, right? But and I know Dave and I have sat on boards. I think Geraldine has, right, for hiring panels, and Stacey already said so. I'm pretty sure, Stacey, I already know your thoughts on this, but when someone can bring a dev org where they show, hey, you know, my husband or myself or something in my former life, this bothered me. I saw this problem, this use case, and I wanted to use Salesforce to show how I could solve that use case.
Mm-hmm.
I know that is, for me personally, extremely powerful message, right? Yeah, you've got certs, you've got 40 Superbadges, and you have 50 certs, but if you can show me you can solve things with the product, you can apply it, you can do that correlative thinking, that tells the story that I want to see, in my opinion. I'd like
to and when people show me their portfolio like that, even if it is just the outcome of a super badge, I ask them why. I don't care that you built it the same way that I did or the same way that our architects would have designed it. I want to know your thinking and your logic. If you say, well, I just did this because that's what the module said, then that tells me you're not really thinking. But if you're saying, well, I know I could have done it this way or that way, and I opted for this way because, then even if I disagree, it shows me that you're thinking. And many times what I'm looking for is someone's aptitude, like, over their actual skill set, right? I mean, you need both, right? You can't have all of just one, but it's how can they explain why they built what they built, and then how can they take the feedback, right? If I push them a little bit of, well, did you think about doing it this way? Do they get flustered? Do they backtrack and question this, or can they stand and say, yeah, I thought about that, but this was the right choice in this instance, you know? And yeah, to the comment, don't let that scare you off. This is where mentors come in, or other, you know, buddies and allies that you can say, well, let me practice this with you and help me find the gaps, help me rehearse my words, or just listen. Sometimes that's enough. I have demoed, I can't tell you how many times, to my cats, just because they listen really well if I give them treats.
I love that. I love that. So Deanna had a question. I know Dave Nava answered it a little bit, and we may have a little bit of a different kind of view on this coming from the Daves and I working at Salesforce itself, because it's not very common to be able to have this because we have NDAs. But do people ever allow newbies to shadow them to see what an actual day in the life is? Have you heard of any programs like that, or have you had an experience where people have been able to shadow while they're not working at the organization that you're at?
Not outside of designated internships like Hiring Our Heroes or the the other mentor programs, because of confidential client information or proprietary internal company processes. So usually that can be more frowned upon, but I have opened up my redacted calendar and said, here's a list of, like, here's my to-do list, things that I need to do to give an idea, but not to have somebody sit and shadow me all day before.
Yeah, I thought that probably would also be your experience as well, but you are correct. You know, different programs that have those internships, like Hiring Our Heroes, are definitely ones where you can kind of go through that process to learn some of the day-to-day activities, and, you know, just having conversations with people, saying, what does your day look like? What is a typical day for you? Kind of how much of your, you know, if you're in a customer-facing role or a client-facing role, how much is, you know, interaction with that customer, that client, versus you doing kind of back-end configuring. So asking those type of questions can help get you a better idea of what the days kind of look like.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe we have just about 5 minutes left. So we might we'll see if we get a lot of conversation on this last question. If not, we'll have 2 closing questions for you. Yes, Dave, it flew by. Okay, so maintaining work-life balance. Always also an interesting conversation, whether it's balance or not, but balancing career goals with personal life can be challenging. How do you maintain a healthy work-life balance in your role at Innovate?
Well, I will tell you, it's not always balanced. I do try to keep it healthy, though. And for my role, there's going to be busy seasons and calmer seasons. And so I really try to take advantage of the calmer seasons and, schedule time to go for a walk or go have lunch, a longer lunch with friends. And then in the busier seasons, I know that I'm going to be at my desk for a little bit longer than usual. But really, a lot of it is just setting up those boundaries. And at one point, I had to have my husband help hold me accountable, and I do to him as well. He tends to be a little bit more of an overworker than I am. But, so knowing what's acceptable for us, for our family, for our situation, we have certain parameters. Like Thursday in our house is date night. And so that's the day that we don't work late, that we, we're 2 years, almost 3 years married now. So it's important for us to make sure that we keep each other as a priority. And so we keep that time, and we both work from home. And so he'll pop into my office or I'll pop into his, and it might be you want to take a walk around the block. And so even if it's just little breaks throughout the day to clear our head and chit chat about how's your day going or whatever. I also know what I'm capable of, right? And I know that I am capable of declining a meeting or asking for it to be rescheduled for a time that fits me. And I will block off time on my calendar to, look, I'm sorry, this is becoming a long answer, but I had an issue where I was overworking and over rushing, and I was eating lunch at my desk. It was Valentine's last year, and 2 years ago, sorry, time goes by fast. And I ate too big a piece of food and it got stuck in my throat. And I couldn't breathe. I was choking. And luckily he was home and he was able to call the ambulance, and obviously everything's fine now. But it was really eye-opening to say, was that one email that I had to get out that important? And truthfully, it's not. And so I'm really intentional now to block time for lunch, block time to take a snack break, to take a morning break. And I really try to hold to those because I know that I'm worth it. I know that I have that value. And so that's what I do for me. But it took a long time to get to that point, and I had to have help along the way.
Yeah, I was looking at Dave Albright and Dave Nava's faces as you were talking about these things, and I was like, okay, they are listening very closely, right? Dave Albright with his comment, work. That's his balance. We joke that
not the best at this. Nava's getting better. I'm a little on the slow side.
Yeah, that he's a robot. I was like, you're a machine sometimes. I don't know where you find all the hours.
Trying to bring him around.
all the hours in the day. So Stacey, is like a closing kind of piece of advice or comment, right? I think especially for our transitioning military members, it is like a 24/7 always on job, right? Like you are not just worried about the tasks at work, you have people that you're worried about as well and what's going on with them. So what do you do to prevent burnout, and kind of what would be your recommendation for others to really how can they kind of find that point of, I need to stop at this point? Like you said, it took you some time to get there, but how can we help our friends on this call maybe realize that sooner rather than later?
Yeah, for me, I had to find what fulfilled me. And as much as I love my job, I love other things as well. And so I volunteer a lot. Like you read off some of the things. I run the local user group, and we meet at least once every month. That takes time to plan. I'm writing a book on Salesforce Service Cloud. I'm planning the Witness Success, the Women in Tech conference for this August. And so doing these things fills my time. I'm on the board for Gaggle Social, and we meet every other week. I have my weekly date nights. There's things that I do. My mother-in-law, we just moved into my neighborhood, and so I spend a lot of time with her and her adorable little puppy. And so having those things fills my time, and it fills my emotional cup. So the emotional cup being full prevents the burnout, and the time being full prevents work from just naturally trickling into all of the time that you should be unplugged.
Amazing. So many great pieces of advice for our group here. So before we close, Stacey, I just want to give you a huge thank you so much for co-hosting tonight's session with me. It has been awesome having you here. getting your perspective on all of the topics that we discussed.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here, and love the military community. Y'all are the best.
We might be a little partial. We think we're pretty awesome too. But with that, thank you so much for attending, everyone. I hope to see you all at our next session, and everyone have a great rest of their Wednesday evening.
Thanks, Stacey. Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.
Thank you, Stacey. Bye, everyone.